Oh, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this exclusive session by the Launchpad. I'm very glad to see many of you signing up today on a Saturday morning. And I'm very excited to chat with our recent high school graduates, Ananya Mehul Jain, Ruhan Desai, and Ananya Manish Jain, about what exactly did they do to get into the colleges that they got admits into. So, without further ado, I think I'm going to dive right into the session because we have so much to talk about, and I somehow think that we'll like just sort of extend if we, don't start soon. So let's begin right away. So this session is for students who have signed up for Launchpad Career Counseling Services, and these students are from grade 7 to grade 10. And the reason that we are having this session for these students is because, especially if students want to aim for top universities abroad, it's better to start earlier. And that's why we thought this is the right time to at least orient all of you about what it takes to get into one of the top colleges. So I'm going to start with the session right away, and I'm going to ask my three panelists for the day to introduce themselves, and they can talk about since when are they at Fountainhead, what was their DP score, where, like, how many offers did they receive, if they've received any scholarships, and where are they finally heading, and what course are they doing. So maybe we can start with Ananya Manish Jain.
Yeah, hi ma'am. So I am Anya Jain. I recently graduated from Fountainhead. I've been in this school since grade 6, and then I followed the IGCSE curriculum and I graduated with the diploma program. I got 38 and 45, which I'm really sad about because there were no exams. But I got about 20 university offers out of, I think, 30 something that I applied to. And I got a few scholarships as well. I got some from Australian universities. I got full scholarship from Aalto University in Finland, and I also got a scholarship in the university which I'm mostly going to attend, University of Toronto.
Thank you, Ananya. The other Ananya can now introduce herself.
Hi, I'm also Ananya Jain. I've been in Fountainhead since grade 1. I was also there in preschool, if that counts. I received, I think, about 6 to 8 offers. I'm not sure how many exactly. I received 2 scholarships from University of Toronto and McGill. And I'm going to the University of Cambridge in the UK. I'm going to be studying land economy, which is essentially economics plus law plus environment.
Over to you, Ruhan.
Right. So, hi, good morning. I'm Ruhan Desai. My IB score was a 41 on 45. I've been with Fountain since its inception, basically. So, playgroup, right till graduating. I applied solely to the US, and I received 6 offers, if I'm not wrong, and I received a $100,000 scholarship by Emory University. Eventually, so now I'll be heading off to Duke University in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruhan and both the Ananyas, that's how we call you. All right. So my next question is going to be about, because, when students are in right from grade 5, 6, 7, they start thinking about, oh, maybe I have an interest in medicine, or maybe I have an interest in architecture. And then sometimes their interests change, they don't change. Some students are very focused. So I wanted to understand from all three of you that when did you zero in on your broad area of study, or did you have, like, did you keep changing your plans, and what were your earlier plans? So if you could talk about what you're finally doing, and maybe Ruhan, since you're spotlighted, we can start with you here.
Okay, so to start off with, when I was in 6th grade, I had this initial interest in biology and anatomy. Then I also had some interest in computer science for some period of time. But as soon as I was in 8th grade, 9th grade, I was pretty clear that I want to do something in the social sciences. Not sure what exactly, but I was quite sure about the social sciences. And so in the same note, I ended up selecting political science as the major I applied with. And I'm thinking at this point to get a double major in poli sci and also do some public policy. But I think because the US system is quite open about declaring your major, you don't declare until second year. So I think I'll have a lot of freedom to choose once I get there. And yeah, I think I'll just offer my 2 bits of advice about this as well. So I think that initially, right from 6th grade, 7th grade, I think you should aim to provide yourself a variety of intellectually stimulating experiences, like a summer school or some intensive camp or workshops, etc. I think that can just like lead you right into the field. So, for example, I told you guys I was very interested in biology, and so for that reason, I shadowed at a lab at NYU. But after the shadowing, I felt that I do not want to work in a lab environment at all, and my interest just totally switched. So I think it's really important to find these experiences which can impact your idea about what you want to study and why you want to study it.
Thank you, Ruhan. Ananya, Manish, you can go next.
So I had the thought of pursuing something in STEM subjects since I think grade 7. I was pretty clear about that, but I was not sure what I wanted to pursue. After that, in grade 9, I took up computer science as an extra subject in the IGCSE, and I believe that is what fueled my interest in computer science. And ultimately, I narrowed down on computer science in grade 10. And I think I agree with what Ruhan said, that since I think you enter 7th, 8th, and 9th, you should really explore different areas, and other than what you have been introduced to by maybe your parents, what your parents do, or what has been taught to you in school. So, for example, I started learning some programming languages. I started with Python on my own on using Udemy courses, and that is what is helping me now, as I can skip some of my courses in college because I learned the language.
Thank you, Ananya. And Ananya Mehul can talk now.
Hi, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself. Right, so in my case, I figured out what I wanted to do much later than both Ananya and Duhan. Until I think grade 9, grade 10, I was considering going into literature and even visual arts. And I had like a very wide range of interests. I wasn't very sure. But I think when it came to selecting my DP subjects, that's when I was able to narrow down on the fact that I wanted to do humanities. So some of it was simply because of subject requirements. I tried to look at what I like to study and thus what I'd like to eventually do in the future. And I also looked at, job opportunities. I looked at how open each of the fields was. And I narrowed down on economics after doing 2 internships where I got very different experiences, one with a private equity firm in Bombay and one with a development economist. And doing this kind of helped me narrow down on the fact that I wanted to do economics. But when it comes to like very specifically what part of econ I wanted to do, the courses that I wanted to apply for, all of this was decided maybe like 4-5 months before applying. So there definitely is time, and it's very natural to, as you learn more about a subject, as you read more books, as you participate in more, say, competitions, etc., you find out more about the subject, and it can be very different than what you'd expect. And it's very natural to have a change of heart, and you should follow it. You should definitely pursue it. And it may also lead to squabbles with your parents, I think. So in my case, towards the very end, I was very interested in econ and political science, and I was looking to study political economy at a few places, and my parents were very surprised at the sudden interest in politics. So I do think that keep an open mind, and it does sort itself out as you come in DP, as your courses become a little more limited. You kind of figure out what you're interested in.
Thank you. So I think what I'm inferring from what the three of you said is that there is really no fixed path as to when you decide what you want to specialize in. But a common thread that I do see in all three of you is that you have explored subjects beyond what the school offers. So I think that's something that I would want our students attending this session to take away, that just what is happening in school and going through those motions are not really going to help you be very specific or precise. But if you explore like what Ananya did in terms of internships, and Ananya Manish also did in terms of filmmaking, which I think she will talk about a little later. And I really liked the idea of like when Ruhan worked in a lab and he realized that he's not cut out for bio or a medical kind of field. So internships is something also that we encourage our middle school students to do. And this year, however, we couldn't offer because of the pandemic, but I think we should be able to do that in the future. So yeah, students, if that's something you need to take away, I think that's that like explore beyond what your school subjects offer you. All right, moving on. So I have, for parents and students who are attending, I have a structure for the session. I'm going to ask some questions to our high school graduates, but afterwards we will have time for some Q&A. So if you have questions, just start putting them in chat box, and we have Megha and Aditi who will curate these questions so that we can take them at the end of the session. So whatever questions come to you, while we will not address it in the middle of this session, we should have some time for questions later on. All right. So college application is like really a cocktail of so many different aspects. And if I have to broadly put it in broad chunks, I would say academics, extracurricular activities, your SAT scores, your TSA scores, your letters of recommendations, your essays, personal interviews, and what makes you stand out from the rest of the applicants. So I will start with Ruhan, and he can talk about what role do academics play in securing a good college admit.
Yeah, finally. So I applied only to the US, and so all of my answers, insights will be focused around that. So especially if you look at the US and you're applying to top colleges, I think academics are not the big differentiator when it comes to applications and selecting applicants. I think that academics are definitely a must. So unless you don't have good academics, you're not even on the list of consideration. So by good academics, I don't mean you have to get a 45 on 45 or get a 43 on 45. It just means that you are consistent in your scores, and you show intellectual promise. And I think then again, the academic requirements differ as per the institution. Some institutions, it wouldn't hurt to have anything above 40. I think at that point, most scores are considered more or less equal. So for the US, I think academics are definitely something that you have to do very vigorously. And without academics, I think the chances for getting into a top college are very limited.
Thank you. Ananya, Mehul, your thoughts on this?
Right. So I agree with what Ruhan said. I think there is sort of a baseline for academics, and you have to meet that, especially when you're looking at top 20 universities or top 50 universities. Whether this is in the US or in the UK and even in Canada, I think. So in Canada specifically, I think the Toronto scholarship that Ananya and I both got, we got because of our predicted grades. And it was quite massive, and you get it simply because you've met, that one checkpoint. As for the US, for a lot of schools, you have to realize that you're not just competing with Fountainhead, you're not just competing with people in Surat, you're competing with people on a worldwide scale, or at least in all of India. And most people that come from IB schools that are applying to top 50 colleges have brilliant predicted, brilliant scores. So although your score may be very good in your peer group, it is always great to have, to sort of like meet the benchmark, which can maybe be like a 37, maybe be a 40 or above out of 42. So it depends again from institution to institution. So definitely like an academic focus is very important. As for the UK, I think academics are one of the only things that matter there. Your offers are in fact conditional based on the final IB scores that you get. So having good scores throughout is a very, very, very big bonus. And your your extracurriculars and your essays alone are not going to get you through the whole thing. It's even possible that they never look at your application if your academics are not good enough, because of the vast number of applications that there are. So definitely give academics credit where it's due. But I think like the pressure to always score at the top of your class, etc., is kind of unfounded. You just need to be doing well. So have like a personal goal, make sure you meet that. And yeah, just do enough, I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, Ananya, I remember for your college, you needed a 42 or more to get through. And I know that you were a little anxious about it before the results, but you made it. So Ananya, too, what is your advice for students from grade 7 to 10 about academics, since we've like established that academics are important? Anything specific that they need to do or don't need to do at this stage?
So for grade 7 and 8, I think those are the most important years for academics, when you can really make your basics and your foundation strong, because once that is strong, the other years will be you will sail through easier than if your basics are not strong enough. And I think academics is like the first
I'm unable to hear Ananya.
Yeah, Anita, we're not able to hear you. We lost you.
Am I not audible?
Now you are. So you can
Yeah, so I was talking about grade 7 and 8 being the most important years for academics, and how those are the years when we should really work on our basics. And if our basics are strong in grade 7 and 8, then I think in 8th, 9th, 10th, we can delve deeper into the profile building part and explore other opportunities apart from your school, because then you don't have to keep studying for every test just because you don't know the basics. And if you follow everything in your classroom, then I think that becomes a lot easier.
Great. Ananya, one, you have to add to what Ananya 2 said.
Right. So I definitely agree with what Ananya says about grade 7 and 8 being a foundation, but at the same time, for those that may be in grade 10, maybe in grade 9, and maybe worried. In my case, my grade 9 report card wasn't great. I had like a bunch of B's and C's on there. And like it is always great to have a good track record, because it just means you're going to have to work much, much, much harder when you do want to, stabilize your report card. But at the same time, like, don't worry, because it's not like the end of everything. I think DP scores matter more than anything, but it's very, very true that if you've done well earlier, then it's easier to get better DP scores. You have like the skills you need to study, you have a very good foundation, it's easier to learn things, you have to work less. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ananya. I think that must be comforting to some students who must have like realized that, oh shit, I miss the grade 7 and 8 opportunity. Yeah, so you can catch up on your grades at any time, but it's always good to start early. Right. So so what I've understood from about academics is like, especially if you're aiming for the top colleges, your academics are like the level 1, and only if you have a certain baseline score there, then you go on to then your application is reviewed, etc. But if you have like a great letter of recommendation or extracurriculars, but if your academics are in place, then maybe top colleges are not really going to consider you. which is pertinent because a lot of students sometimes become extra focused about profile building and extracurriculars, and that may come at the cost of academics. But it's important to strike that balance. So, speaking about extracurriculars, maybe we can talk about how did you like, what were the extracurricular activities that did you pursue, or what were your activities which qualified as profile building? And we'll start with Ananya too here.
I started for shaping my profile since I mean, my dad used to really encourage me to go into a lot of the opportunities that he would find for me. So in grade 5, I visited an international children's film festival in Hyderabad, and that is sort of my journey. That is where my journey started. So we would meet a lot of world-class directors from around the world who had submitted their movies into this festival, and we would also watch their movies. And the main part was that these were children's movies, so they were beautifully picturized, and there was always a message to them. And after I came back, I had talked to a lot of people there, and I found out about this technology called the audio describe technology that allows the blind people to experience movies. And I was so intrigued about this technology that I decided to research upon it further. And then upon coming back, I realized that there are only 20 audio described movies in India, and which is so sad because we have, I think, the world's largest blind population. And I decided to procure these movies and start screening them in the local blind school in my city. And due to these frequent visits to school, I found out that the gap between the education that they get and that we get is very huge. And in the history of 64 years of that school, only one student had taken science at a higher level. And these statistics were so shocking to me. And this is what gave rise to my own social entrepreneurship organization, which is called Dreams, and which is the base of my whole profile that I have submitted to all of the colleges. And through this organization, me and two of my friends, we aimed to provide quality STEM education to special students, specifically the blind. And through this organization and this project of ours, we got to visit the Diamond Challenge Social Entrepreneurship Summit, which was held at University of Delaware. And the next year, we also got to visit Harvard University for a week-long immersion program. And so I believe that this one organization that I started led me to build my profile further, and I got to delve into social entrepreneurship as a topic. I got to delve into how to use technology to better the lives of others. I also, since I have always been interested in films, I directed about 8 short films, and out of which 2 of them won the national award at the National Science Film Festival. And so I got to delve into another area, which was films. And at one point, I had considered having a career in films as well. So I believe that once we start, one small thing, which was this idea of Dreams, about just screening the movies in the local blind school, I think that gives rise to more and more opportunities. And as more social entrepreneurship challenges, more film festivals came my way, I think they really helped me shape who I am.
Thank you. Ruhan, you have a hand raised, or was that for the previous question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something on the academics topic. So these guys mentioned the importance of starting out early, and I definitely recognize that importance. And I just wanted to add that for the US in specific, you submit grades right from 9th grade. Now, so 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So it's very important to show that you're not a one-time wonder and you can score well consistently. And yeah, that's just something I wanted to add earlier.
Thank you. And while you spotlighted, maybe you can talk about your profile building activities.
Sure. So my first idea of profile building or any sort of activity like this is in 6th grade, I attended a summer session at Stanford. And so followed by that, I gained a keen interest in a bunch of things. I was very interested by applying by the college application process. Back then, I was interested in anatomy and computer science, and it also definitely helped me to hone my focus and help me what I wanted to do. Later on, I did a similar summer course at Brown University, followed by a internship, a observership at a lab at NYU. So that were my activities that I did in the summer earlier. But my main profile building started when I was in the eighth grade, moving on into the ninth grade. So I started my own blog about politics, where I wrote a bunch of articles about my views on world politics, Indian politics, political thought. I also was working with an organization called the Toy Bank Foundation for a substantial time. So the Toy Bank Foundation is an NGO that focuses on providing underprivileged children the right to play, and they truly see play as a change maker in children's lives. So I was very inspired by this idea, and it was the one of the first places where I could actually see the impact that I was creating. So I became quite attached with this organization, and have kept a continuous relationship with them, and have been working with them right from eighth grade. Then I was also in high school, I was very heavily involved in Model UN. I did over 30 conferences, chaired around 10. I was the Deputy Secretary General of FS1 in 10th grade, and the Secretary General in the 11th grade. And yeah, I did a lot of Model UN right across all across India. So that was something that was definitely a highlight of my application, as I consistently spent a lot of my time in that activity. So yeah, and the other thing that I did through high school, which I really think stood out for my application, is the research I pursued. So with a member of the faculty at Fountainhead, former member of the faculty at Fountainhead, I presented two research papers at national level conferences about politics, which I think they were definitely something that were quite unique in terms of Fountainhead and my cohort. So yeah, that's my two bits on the extracurriculars.
Thank you, Ruhan. Ananya, one, can you talk about your profile building activities?
So because I also applied to the US, some of my profile building was, very, it was more based on my interests in general. So I did some stuff, I pursued some smaller projects. So doing things like, playing sports, making videos, making art, having an art portfolio that I submitted to a lot of universities. I also funded a social organization called Dang Culture, where we documented Dangi culture, and we also introduced the concept of homestays, among other things, to financially empower the Dangi people. And I also did research with a development economist for over a year, was a part of several research papers that she published a paper of my own with a professor from, I haven't published it yet, but I wrote a paper of my own with a professor from VNSGU. But I think while I've done a lot of other things, also like including community service, being a part of two school clubs, so being the president of the literature club and co-presidents with Ruhan of the economics club, and starting publications in both of these, etc. I think what really stood out in my case was, for the UK, you need extracurriculars that are specific to your course. And that's what counts, because you get to write about them in your applications. And if you are lucky, you get to talk about them in your interviews. And in my case, so this was things like the economics club, this was things like writing a newspaper for the economics club. It was also my project with the financial empowerment of Dang. It was an internship that I did with private equity. It was with private equity. It was the research work that I did. I think what made my extracurriculars in particular stand out, at least in the UK, was the fact that they were very local and they were very focused on empowering my community and those around me. So even when my projects involved, say, writing, etc. They always had a local focus. And not only did this, while writing about these projects, not only does this show how involved I am with my community, but it also means that I am more aware of what's going on around me. So in my Cambridge interviews, I was able to talk about the local context as a result of having worked in Down. I was able to talk about economic and social policies and public policies that could be implemented, that needed improvement, etc., because of my work with development economists in India. So I do think that in my case, especially coming from a place like Surat, although there are going to be quite a few applicants from Surat, it's still it's not Bombay, it's not Bangalore, it's not Delhi. So you are still going to be standing out as a result of your city, and you can take full advantage of that by making sure that the work that you're doing is local, and the work that you're doing uplifts your community rather than say, working towards a vague international goal or working with foundations abroad. Not that that work is any less credible. I'm just saying that this can come off as, a unique selling point in your application.
Thank you. Well, what I can conclude from whatever you three have shared is that it sounds like a lot of work beyond your regular school load and making sure that you are excelling in academics. So I think, was it a lot of grind, or was it something that was enjoyable? Did it become stressful at any point? And I mean, I'll just open it and either of you can take it up.
In my case, a lot of it was, it started out of passion. It was things I really enjoyed. For example, the literature club, Down culture was definitely a passion project. But it did get very stressful because at the end of the day, you are doing all of these projects and you are also doing college applications and you're doing the IBDP. So just having that amount of workload will get stressful. Inevitably, you are working with, say, a lot of juniors. There are a lot of people that may need guidance. There can be a lot of very stressful days. But I do think it's worth it because you end up making great friends, you end up learning a lot. And there are projects that you want to continue even after university because you care about them. So even after high school, because you care about them so
much. Ruhan or Ananya too, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, so about my experience with the application process and activities and everything, I think you don't think that the activities, I didn't find the activities to be quite stressful because exactly as Ananya mentioned, that you do what you like, so you don't find it as a compulsion, you don't not like it. But I think the part that was stressful about the entire journey was writing essays. I think that was the most stressful part for me. I'm not a very great writer, so that definitely needed the essay writing process needed a lot of work from my side. Yeah, that's it.
Ananya, do you want to take this one? Ananya too? Or?
I think my journey was also same as both of them because it does not get stressful if you do what you like and if you are the one who has initiated the whole process and no one is forcing you to do or no one has imposed the whole thing on you. But as they were managing IB and these activities is the most difficult thing.
All right, thank you. I wanted to talk a little more about things like SAT and letters of recommendations and essays, but what I'm going to do is I'll maybe come back to it later. If we have time, I want to, because we also have a lot of parents attending, I want to talk about what role did your parents play in this whole process over the past several years, because I think it's quite clear by now that this is not something that has just happened in the past 2 years since you were in grade 11 and you had to choose a college, but the work or the background work for it has started quite some time back. So what role did your parents play? How much of it was welcome or unwelcome? And did you get into squabbles, fights? So if again, three of you can take it and talk about it a little more. So Ananya, we can start with you. You're spotlighted.
So I think ma'am and Ankita ma'am both know this very well, that my father played a very, very huge role in all of my applications and my profile building. he would find out opportunities from websites like YouthOp and bring them to me to just show that are you interested in this and do you want to do this, and I think that helped a lot because I would be revising my IGCSE curriculum and he would be searching all of this, and that helped me a lot. Apart from that, I never took an external counselor. All my counseling was done by Ritu ma'am and my father. My father had researched all of this when my sister was also planning to study abroad. So I think that helped a lot. I mean, we did not go to an external counselor. My dad would help me and make me aware about all of the various points about what makes a good application. And I think the parents' role is very, very important because sometimes it can be very difficult to manage all of these things, because I remember in December when we were writing our essays, we also had to write about 4 of our internal assessments for IB. We had to manage the exams. Everything was online, so that was another hassle. So I think if there is a supporting factor who helps you get through this journey, I think that makes it very easy.
Thank you, Ananya, too. Ruhan, can you talk about your parents' involvement?
Sure. So I think the importance of parents is quite huge, as Ananya rightly mentioned, and that I think that right from sixth grade, my parents took a very active role in everything that I did. And I think at that point, the stage when you're in sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, I think I did not have a lot of motivation to do all of these things, but I think that was the time when my parents made me aware. They pushed me a bit. It definitely seemed a little too much at that point, but in retrospect, I think that was the most important things that led me here, and that definitely gave me a good background, gave me a good base from which I could stand on. And I think the importance of parents continues throughout, right until you submit your college applications. My parents were with me throughout the time, and even if you need help in essays or you just want to discuss ideas, I think if you're close with your parents, they're the best people to go to, because they were definitely the best for me. And yeah, I think it's as good as you make it to be. And I think it definitely is something you can't do it without parents. You need parents by your side at all times, definitely.
Thank you, Ruhan. Uh, Ananya, one.
I think in my case, my parents were slightly less involved than in Ananya and Ruhan's case, but they were definitely a very important factor. So for me, sorry, just a second. Right. So in my case, my parents asked me about career counseling, I think in about grade 8 and grade 9, but I was a little I was a little unsure about starting so early, and I wrote like they got really involved in grade 11, and they were very integral in helping me find a career counselor. They were very integral in making sure that I was more than anything else. I think I really appreciate the emotional support that I received from them. So I think they played the most major role in grade 12 when we were actually applying for college, where I think they were the only people who really witnessed what I went through. And for me, especially, like I'm very open about this, college applications plus IB plus internal assessments, all of that was a very, 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 very stressful time. And I think it was probably like the lowest I've ever been. And having parents that were very supportive of that were, they understood my limits, they understood my capacity. They made sure that they weren't forcing me to work harder or making me feel like I was inadequate. They were there when I got rejections. They were there when I was crying at 3 a.m. And I think that support was more integral than like what my friends could have given me or what anyone else could have, because they're there with you like throughout the process. So I think that's extremely, extremely helpful. And they were also involved in the sense that when we were shortlisting colleges, when we were thinking about things like finances, which end up being like what colleges I want to apply for, what scholarships I want to apply for, how much time I want to give to, each of these aspects. They were definitely very, very important. Like Ruhan said, great for essays. My dad proofread a lot of my essays before submission, and even smaller things. So I didn't do any mock interviews, but I had interviews for Cambridge, Princeton, Columbia, and a few other places. And in all of these cases, like I had informal mock interviews with my dad. I was able to discuss, say, political and economic issues of current, like that were going on right now with my parents, and they were able to bounce perspectives off of me. So I think definitely a very, very wide role, and sometimes goes under acknowledged.
Thank you for saying that. And I mean, I have witnessed over the years how involved, parents have been in this journey for their students. So, I mean, parents who are attending this, I think one takeaway for all of us is that we can't just leave it to the child and say that, okay, he'll figure out. They are, even though they think that they know what they want, etc., I think they will need you from time to time. And I think it's important that we are there as parents for them and offering them unconditional love and support that they need at that time. And especially like for you guys, because you have done this through a pandemic and through doing schooling from home and doing this whole process from home, not really meeting your friends, etc. So I just want you to quickly talk about how because our students attending this are still young, they're in 7th to 10th. So how important it is to be able to manage your emotions, or to be sorted in your head when it comes to this, because what I've understood is that this is a lot of hard work and it can become stressful. So could you just offer some words of wisdom to our students for this? Ananya, you're spotlighted, so you go first.
Right. I also wanted to add, before I continue on what I said about parents, I do think it's very important that they play a role, but at the same time, what I really appreciate about my parents was that they were very respectful of my boundaries. And at the end of the day, it was my application. It was all like full of activities that I did because I was passionate about, that my parents helped with, rather than, forcing me to do things that they thought would look good on an application. It was my timelines and my scheduling, etc., which I think is very important. So respecting, the child and their capacity and their space and their maturity, essentially. As for being emotionally sorted during the college app season, I do think it's very important because we grew up in a very, very sheltered environment. I think college apps is the most competition most of us have faced. Fountainhead is a very tiny school where the only competition that's encouraged is extremely friendly. And to go through the process can be very brutal, not only because you are pushed to your very limits and you are forced to do the best that you have ever done, but because it feels like everyone else is doing so much more and so much better, or it may feel like you've done better but you haven't gotten what others have, and you're kind of stuck between having imposter syndrome and a god complex. So it's quite a unique place to be in. I think the best advice that I can give is be give yourself credit when it's due, and recognize that your achievements are your achievements regardless of what college you get into. Like, just because I didn't get into my top choices in the US doesn't mean that I didn't have the academic scores that I did, and doesn't mean that I don't have I haven't been a part of the projects that I've been a part of. And don't be afraid to ask for help, and in some cases that might even be therapy. So I think in general, we are very in India, we're very averse to talking about getting mental health help. But school is stressful. A lot of people need external help. They need to talk to a counselor, and there's no shame in it. I was on the verge of talking to one until exams got cancelled, and I was provided with relief. So yeah, I think just make sure that your mental health is at a good place, because that's definitely going to be more important than the college that you go to at the end of the day. You don't want to break yourself, and you don't want to suffer, because that mentality will carry with you at college, because competition will always exist and you need to learn how to deal with it on your own terms. So I think those are my 2 cents.
Ruhan, Ananya, you have anything to add in addition to what? Yeah, Ruhan, go ahead.
I think I totally resonate with the idea of recognizing your own achievements, and looking at and not comparing yourselves with everybody around you. But I think it's also important for you to understand what success in the college application season or the process means for you. So I think instead of having a very single track mindset about, say, the definition of success for me means getting into a Harvard or a Stanford or a whatever college you like, I think you have to be understanding that most of the colleges, if not all the colleges you're applying to, will be wonderful places for you to gain an exemplary education. And I think if you start accepting that, if you start not labeling universities, good universities, your safeties, I think you'll just feel a lot better about the entire application process, about universities, and about yourself as well. So that's just something.
Ananya, do you have something to add?
I think this is where goal setting, mindful goal setting plays a very important role, because you have to uh, take you have to understand the whole process before you set the goal, because if you set really overachieving goals and you don't achieve them, then you might doubt your own self. So I think talking to counselor, as Ananya mentioned, helps a lot in these situations.
Thank you for your inputs. Yeah, and I think sometimes not getting what you want could be the best thing that happened to you. Of course, you may recognize that a few years from now, but yeah, I think it's okay to, it's important to be okay and feel okay about yourself throughout the process, irrespective of the rejections and acceptances you get. And I know it was very stressful for some of you when all this was happening during your submissions and your final IAs and IOs and things like that. So I think one takeaway that I would have for the younger students listening in is that it's important to also focus on our EQ and be work on being emotionally and mentally sorted. So make sure, I don't know specifically how you can do that, but just keep that in mind, like, for the future. Okay. I have so many more questions, and there are also a lot of questions from the audience. So I'm going to have one last question for you guys, and that is about. So I know that Ananya too said that she didn't use any external counselor and she used only the school counseling service, with her father playing an important role. And I do know that Ananya and Rohan have also signed up with an external counselor. So if you could just talk a little bit about how these two services, were they complementary? Did they, like, how did both these things help you? So, Ruhan, you want to go first?
Sure. So right from eighth grade, from ninth grade, I had an external counselor from Bombay, and I think how it worked is that both school counseling and external counseling was quite complementary, as a lot of the points that came up outside were also the points that came up when I was discussing things with Ritu ma'am, and I think. With the school counseling team, I was always more comfortable about sharing small things or getting quick advice instead of setting up an appointment or things like that. So I think that is definitely something that I really appreciate about the school counseling team. And yeah, I think it's quite important to receive good counseling, and the new service Launchpad, as school has launched, I think it's a very good way. And back when we were in eighth, ninth grade, I think the process wasn't as refined as today it is. And I think this is something that everybody should take good advantage of.
Ma'am, you're muted.
So, yeah, so I wanted you to talk about your experience with external counseling and school counseling.
I think so. I started external counseling in the summer between grade 10 and grade 11. And in my case, I think that school counseling was very helpful when it came to the very like submitting your application. So there's a lot of technical stuff that I think is included in the school package that I think it's very difficult to go without. For example, uploading your transcripts, and even things like getting nominated for scholarships, which is very important if you're going to Canada. So I do think that in those cases, it is very important to opt in for school counseling, because between you and the colleges, a lot of times colleges will not communicate to you, but they will communicate with your school. There were times when Ritu ma'am sent me, information about some college results before I got them myself. And all of those things I think are very, very helpful, because your school is your college's primary point of contact other than yourself. Um, and at the same time, the school was able to help me in smaller ways, because when I had ideas, they were able to direct me to people in school who would be able to help me out. So whether this was Bhargavi ma'am when it came to time management, Bhumika ma'am if I had to ask for permissions, or Falguni ma'am if I wanted help with like actually executing events. So in that case, I think school counseling is helpful. But at the same time, I do believe, so while I took external counseling, it was primarily for the US. um, my counselor did advise me on UK as well, but primarily for the US. And I do think that if you're applying to top 50 colleges in the US, it's extremely hard to do so without an external counselor. And I think, in my personal opinion, and this may not be the same for everyone, when you have an external counselor, a lot of times you have a lot more individual focus. Whereas with a school counselor, they are looking at you in the context of everyone else in your grade, which in my case was about 75 students, but in your case will probably be even more. So I do think in that sense, getting an external counselor who really knows your profile, who's building it with you, and who's able to give you a perspective that is informed by what other people in other cities and even in other countries are also doing, like other applicants in the same pool as you are doing, can be very helpful. So I would say opt for both. I think, yeah, I do think that it can be quite tough to do the process without school because of the technical aspects, especially.
All right, thank you. So again, like I think it works differently for different students based on what exactly you want to do, which colleges, which countries you're looking at, and also depends on the involvement of your parent. Because I do know that in Ananya too's case, her father was very, very involved, and he sort of served the like he was like so actively involved, and that really helped her in that aspect. Yeah, so I mean, we have spoken about academics, we've spoken about extracurriculars, and like parents' involvement, etc., etc. So, like, if you had to give some, and before we get to we'll take question and answers after this, but if you had to give some suggestions to the younger students about doable things, work like something as basic as like what is it that they can do even starting in 7th and 8th? We've already spoken about academics and extracurriculars, but what is it beyond that they can do? Ananya, would you like to talk about it? Ananya, one.
Sure. I think 2, 3 like very quick important points. Read a lot. Reading for pleasure. Not only is it extremely fun, your parents will get off your back about watching TV, but also it's going to be very integral when you're writing college essays, when you're actually in college and you're like your entire course load is just reading nonfiction that is extremely difficult to get past. So having good reading skills, I think, is very, very, very crucial. It's going to help you with projects later on, and it's going to help you with essays, writing. It's just an integral skill to have. Second, writing. So you can always look at content writing, whether this is starting your own blog or writing your own poetry, or so like Ruhan did, he's had his own political blog, or whether this is like by contributing to the school newsletter or joining something like the Economics Club or the Literature Club, or even like other external organizations. So I think, I'm not sure about grade 7, 8, but at least in 9, 10th, you can pretty much get paid, make good pocket money by like writing articles, etc. And it's a great way to not only improve your writing skills, but also have like financial independence, not independence, but a bit. Yeah, I think those primarily very important. So that focus on building skills. I think Ananya also spoke about coding and web development. These are very, very important things that will help you a lot. So while activities from 7th and 8th won't reflect on your resume, your skills very, very, very much will. So if you learn new languages, learn how to use new softwares, venture into things that interest you, I think that should be pretty helpful. And also like take it easy, don't overwork yourself. I did pretty much absolutely nothing in 7th and 8th, and I think I turned out okay. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Ananya too?
I think reading skills, what Anya mentioned, very, very important. They also help in your SAT a lot, which I lagged a bit. Apart from that, I think don't let your summers go to waste. And every summer, I would always do an online course. I never had any summer vacation of mine free. So, maybe do an internship in your father's own office to just learn something about and explore different areas. I think, yeah, that's about it.
Ruhan?
Yeah. So I think Ananya's point about not letting your summers go to waste is, I think that's very, very important, because in that stage of your academic journey, I think you just have a lot more time, because in 11th, 12th, you don't have time at all, because you have IAs, you have lots of things coming up. So I think when you're in the 7th, 8th to 10th grade period, I think you should make maximum use of your summers, go for summer school, intern somewhere, do some independent work of your own. I think that's very important. But some other things I'd like to touch on is that you definitely need to build good relationships with your teachers. I think that definitely pays off in the long run when you're asking them to give you the letters of recommendation. The letters of recommendation are extremely important. They're often unrecognized in India. In a lot of, I did not personally have any idea about how important the letters of recommendation were until I was in 12th grade. So I think if you start building good relationships with your teachers, you can definitely do well on the letters of recommendation. The other thing I'd like to recommend is about standardized testing. I think you should definitely, when you're in 8th to 9th grade, you should definitely start out with doing the PSAT. And the PSAT can definitely help when it comes to the final SAT, which you can start as early as the 10th grade, because there's no timeline on when you have to give the SAT. It's not like you have to give it in 12th grade or in 11th grade. There's no fixed time. Multiple opportunities show up across the year. Whenever you're free, whenever you think you're free, just go ahead and give the SAT just to get a feeler of the test, understand how it works. And I think the SAT is largely also about managing your stress, because it's a very high stress environment. And I think getting used to that high stress environment is quite important, because that is one that will follow you into your college as well. So yeah, those are the main things of advice I have.
Thank you. We just have a few minutes now to take questions. So I'm going to.
Could I add something?
Yeah, go ahead, Ananya.
Right. I also wanted to add that, especially if you're in grade 9 or 10, this is a very good time to like figure out a passion project. So in Ananya's case, that was working on computer science and blind children. And in my case, that was Sedang, which I discovered quite late. So I think, building a good foundation is great, because like Rohan said, you don't have time later on. And another thing is that if you're applying, especially to all countries, actually having awards, winning essay competitions, etc., really counts for a lot, because you have to, it's again like it's one of those basic requirements that you have to have on your Common App. You need to fill at least the 5 like award section, and it can be really helpful to enter a lot of essay competitions, etc. It also shows that you have been involved and you've like always been active for a long time, not just like in grade 11 and 12 when you realize that college is something you need to work for. So yeah, definitely, especially if you're in 9th and 10th, start working on your extracurriculars and don't let your summers go to waste.
Great. Thank you. So I'm now going to go to the questions part of it. So there are 2-3 questions which are similar, but basically they ask about that if you had multiple subject interests, how did you finally choose on what course did you want to do amongst those? So how did you like drop, because you can't do everything that you want to do. So Ananya, you want to take this up? Ananya one.
In my case, this was one just sheer elimination in DP. A lot of my options got eliminated because I was not willing to do physics. Um, so that will be the case for some of you. Two, internships, reading. So when you get more exposure to your subject, because what you learn in high school is like very, very foundational. It's not what you actually end up doing. For example, a lot of economics at university is just maths, right? So when you get more exposure to your subject, you understand better if you are as equipped for it as you thought you were. In my case, I took both IB psychology and economics, but like a few months into IB psychology, and I knew that that wasn't something I could do. I could like study for 4 years. I would go insane. So I think everyone has their own preferences, and you realize that as you delve more into the subject outside of just the school curriculum. And of course, talk to people, talk to university students, cold message people on LinkedIn. That always helps.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Sorry. My next question is for Ananya too, and this is again an audience question which talks about, and the question is that will online courses from universities add to my profile? Because I know that you said that you have done a few courses. So did that help you, and would you recommend it?
They might not add to your profile on the college application, but they'll definitely add to your skill set that I think you can in turn use to further your profile building. So if you know a language, you can maybe create an application or a website for some company or your own organization. So the certificate from that course will not help, but how you have applied those skills in what you have done will help definitely.
So I think skill building is key, is what I'm understanding. I mean, whether or not it helps your profile.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
So agreeing with what Ananya said, but at the same time, one of my peers who's doing the same course as me at Cambridge, I saw his like essay, and I spoke with him, and his entire application, like a very large chunk of it, was built off of this one online course that he did, that gave him a lot of knowledge and gave him a lot of things to like further probe into, and his entire personal statement revolved around that. It was a lot of what he spoke of at interviews. So yes, online courses can very much help, but no, like it's not worth purchasing the certificate for. But yeah, they are important, I think.
Thank you. There is this one question which is about, do marks from grade 9 count in as well? And I think our panelists have addressed that, yes, you need to show a consistent level. So Parisha, I think that addresses your particular question. Simone Kothari, you've asked about international universities and Indian universities, but I think the students have not applied to Indian universities. So I don't think, we should direct this question at them. But I do want Ruhan to answer this question about the blogs that you worked on and like the toy foundation that you worked at. Which grade did you start doing this?
I think it was somewhere 8th, 9th grade. I started out, and I think it helped because it gave me a lot of time to work upon both of those projects. I could write, say, I couldn't do a lot of blogging if I started out in the 12th grade. So I think starting early always helps, and there's no age limit for such activities, and I mean you can start them at any point of time.
Right. I think if they have a passion, they have an interest, they can start doing it. And I mean, MYP students here, so you do have your personal project in grade, and I think the process starts probably in grade 9 and goes on till grade 10. So again, don't consider that as something that you need to do as a part of your course requirement, but think about it as an opportunity to explore your passion, to do, to make a difference, to do something that you really care about. And if you approach it that way, I think you will be able to do your personal project with your heart in it, rather than just, getting it done for the sake of it. All right. I think one last question that I would want to ask the panelists is about, because our students, while right now most of them are back to school, I know grade 7 and 8 is not yet back to school, and we are living in through a pandemic. So I don't know what, with rumors of third wave, etc. I don't know if we would again have to switch back to online school, although grade 9 to 12 are attending school right now. So how did you manage this? I mean, any advice for them to manage distractions, staying focused in online classes? Anything specific that they should do or not do? So Ruhan, you're spotlighted, so why don't you go ahead with this?
Right. So about online classes, the only thing I have to say is that if you're not feeling super interested, don't attend the class and just cover the content on your own. This this might be a little wrong for some people, but I think that personally worked out a lot for me, because what happens is that virtual school, you end up having a lot of screen time, and that really disturbs all of your daily things. So I did this a lot. If I knew that X topic is going to be covered, just do X topic on your own. And the other thing definitely is that you're at home, try spending time with your parents, your siblings. Yeah.
I'm not sure, as your teacher, we are very happy to hear this, but theek hai. I think we are looking at practical solutions. So whatever works, yeah. Either of Ananya 1 or Ananya 2, you want to add your bit to it?
I think for me it was same as Ruhan. I used to skip a lot of classes and study on my own, but only because I knew I could and I had the right resources. So if someone is not that confident and cannot study, I think do attend the classes and keep messaging your teachers about your doubts. And I think they will be sweet enough to schedule more sessions for you and one-on-one meetings. So I think if you can try studying on your own, that could be a kind of revision after the classes. But if you can't, then just attend the classes.
Yeah, please attend classes, grade 7 and 8 students, okay? We don't want you to say, oh, the only takeaway that you take back is, oh, they said that it is okay, you can do it on your own. So that's not what I want you to take away. Yeah, Ananya, one, do you have something?
Right. So other than what they said, which I'm not going to comment on, because I think they've tarnished our name enough. I think one thing that really helps is just switching on your camera. Like I was there, I made the excuses, I bunked the classes, but when you're switching on your camera, the teacher is going to pick on you and you are going to have to focus. There were so many classes when I think Ruhan and I would be the only people with our cameras on. So yeah, like you have to make an effort, and if you're switching your camera on, you are automatically focusing a bit more. So do that. And at the same time, because stuff is online, it is sometimes easier to meet teachers, because their Google Calendar schedules are very accessible. It's just an online meeting. So definitely approach them for doubts. A lot of teachers are very sweet, even if you're not attending classes, but you've studied the stuff on your own, and you have questions, they will answer them. So make the best use of this, in terms of getting that done. Also, I mean, that it is whatever's said and done, at the end of the day, you do have more time as a result of being at home all day. And I feel like I wouldn't have maybe been able to like survive college apps and all of that if perhaps I was in a normal environment, because I also had a lot of stuff with extracurriculars going on. So use this time to do as much as you want to, and don't just let it be like something that sits on your bucket list or something that you want to one day achieve. Go for it now. You have the time, you have the drive.
All right. Thank you. And we've crossed our session timing, so I am going to close now. There is one question about what careers do they want to pursue, but I think I mean, even if you plan a career, careers happen to you. So I am not. I'm personally excited to see what the future holds in store for you. So maybe after a few years, we'll have you back and talking about what careers did you finally pursue at the end of your graduation. So thank you so much, Ananya Jain 1, Ananya Jain 2, and Ruhan for joining in and for sharing your very honest insights with our student community. This was super helpful. I personally enjoyed chatting with all of you. And I think that's it. Thank you, parents. Thank you, students, for joining in. If they have specific questions for these people, you can write to alumni. Can someone just put the email ID there? So maybe we can help you connect with these students. Someone from Launchpad team can add. And thank you everyone for joining in. I close the session officially here, and that's it. Bye-bye.